Welcome to Hollywood Secrets Information. Behind the dazzling lights, glamorous premieres, and unforgettable performances, some of old Hollywood's greatest stars were fighting battles that audiences never saw. Fame brought them fortune and admiration, but for many, it also came with overwhelming pressure, loneliness, addiction, trauma, or heartbreaking mental decline. In today's video, we're uncovering the tragic stories of 17 old Hollywood stars whose lives took a devastating mental turn, revealing how personal struggles changed their careers, relationships, and final years forever. Stay with us until the end, because several of these stories remain among the most heartbreaking chapters in Hollywood history. 17. Frances Farmer. One of Hollywood's brightest young talents, Frances Farmer seemed destined for superstardom during the 1930s. Intelligent, outspoken, and fiercely independent, she refused to conform to the strict expectations of the studio system. Her rebellious personality often brought her into conflict with executives, while mounting personal pressures affected her emotional well-being. After a series of legal troubles and public incidents, she was involuntarily committed to psychiatric hospitals, where she underwent treatments that remain controversial to this day. Reports of harsh institutional conditions and questionable medical practices have fueled debate for decades. Although Farmer eventually returned to public life as a television host, her acting career never fully recovered. Her life has since become a powerful symbol of how mental illness, public scrutiny, and limited understanding of psychiatric care could devastate a talented performer during Hollywood's golden age. 16. Veronica Lake. With her signature peekaboo hairstyle, Veronica Lake became one of the biggest screen icons of the 1940s. Behind her glamorous image, however, she struggled with severe alcoholism, anxiety, and difficult relationships that gradually damaged both her reputation and career. Directors frequently described working with her as challenging, while personal hardships continued to mount. As movie offers disappeared, Lake found herself battling financial problems and emotional distress. At one point, she was even working as a bartender after her Hollywood success had faded. Although she attempted several comebacks, the combination of addiction and declining mental health prevented her from regaining her former status. Her story serves as a heartbreaking reminder that fame can quickly disappear, leaving even the brightest stars vulnerable to isolation and despair. 15. Gig Young. Academy Award-winning actor Gig Young was admired for his sophisticated charm and memorable performances. Yet behind the camera, he endured years of depression, alcoholism, and emotional instability. His personal life became increasingly troubled through multiple failed marriages and recurring struggles with addiction. Friends noticed dramatic mood changes as his career slowed during the 1970s. Tragically, in 1978, Young fatally shot his fifth wife before taking his own life, shocking Hollywood and fans around the world. His devastating final act highlighted the importance of recognizing severe mental health struggles and seeking help before they spiral into irreversible tragedy. Despite his remarkable acting legacy, his heartbreaking ending remains one of Hollywood's darkest stories. 14. Judy Garland. Few entertainers possess the extraordinary talent of Judy Garland, whose unforgettable performances made her one of cinema's greatest legends. Yet the immense pressure of child stardom took a devastating toll on her mental and physical health. Studio executives closely controlled nearly every aspect of her life, including her diet, sleep, and work schedule, often relying on prescription medications to keep her performing. As the years passed, Garland developed dependency issues while battling anxiety, depression, and emotional exhaustion. Financial problems and failed relationships added to her struggles. Despite continuing to captivate audiences with her incredible voice, she lived much of her life fighting inner turmoil. Her tragic death at only 47 years old remains a powerful reminder of the hidden cost of fame and relentless industry pressure. 13. Vivien Leigh. Best remembered for her unforgettable role as Scarlett O'Hara, Vivian Leigh dazzled audiences with beauty, intelligence, and extraordinary talent. Away from the cameras, however, she lived with what historians widely believe was bipolar disorder, although it was not properly understood or treated during much of her lifetime. Leigh experienced dramatic mood swings, periods of intense energy, severe depression, and emotional breakdowns that affected both her personal life and professional career. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier gradually deteriorated as her condition worsened. Even while struggling, she continued delivering remarkable performances on stage and screen, demonstrating incredible resilience. Her life illustrates how misunderstood mental illness often isolated even the world's most celebrated performers. 12. Montgomery Clift. Handsome and immensely gifted, Montgomery Clift was considered one of Hollywood's finest dramatic actors. Everything changed after a devastating automobile accident in 1956 left him with severe facial injuries and chronic pain. The physical trauma was followed by depression, anxiety, and increasing dependence on alcohol and prescription drugs. Friends observed dramatic personality changes as Clift became more withdrawn and emotionally fragile. Despite continuing to deliver critically acclaimed performances, his health steadily declined throughout the following years. Many film historians describe this difficult period as the longest suicide in Hollywood because of the relentless toll addiction and emotional suffering took on his life. Clift passed away in 1966 at only 45 years old, leaving behind an extraordinary but deeply tragic legacy. 11. Gene Tierney. Renowned for her elegance and unforgettable beauty, Gene Tierney endured one of the most heartbreaking personal tragedies in Hollywood history. During pregnancy, she contracted rubella after unknowingly being exposed by an infected fan, resulting in her daughter being born with severe disabilities. The overwhelming guilt and grief deeply affected Tierney's emotional health, leading to severe depression. She was hospitalized several times and received psychiatric treatment, including electroconvulsive therapy, which was common during that era. Although she eventually returned to acting, the emotional scars never completely disappeared. Tierney later spoke openly about her mental health struggles, helping future generations better understand the devastating emotional impact of trauma and loss. 10. William Holden. Beloved for his charisma and award-winning performances, William Holden enjoyed decades as one of Hollywood's leading men. Beneath his confident image, however, he struggled with chronic alcoholism that gradually affected both his career and personal relationships. Friends often worried about his increasingly reckless behavior and emotional decline. Although he remained active in film, addiction continued to dominate much of his later life. Tragically, in 1981, Holden died alone after suffering a fatal fall in his apartment while intoxicated. His passing shocked Hollywood and highlighted the destructive consequences that untreated addiction and emotional struggles can have, even for one of the industry's biggest stars. 9. Mickey Rooney. A child prodigy who became one of MGM's biggest stars, Mickey Rooney experienced extraordinary success at a remarkably young age. However, the pressures of lifelong fame, financial instability, and repeated personal setbacks took a heavy emotional toll. Over the decades, Rooney battled depression, periods of intense stress, and financial hardship despite earning millions during his career. He also spoke publicly about being financially exploited later in life, a betrayal that deeply affected his mental well-being. Nevertheless, Rooney continued acting well into his later years, showing remarkable determination despite countless obstacles. His story demonstrates both the emotional cost of child stardom and the resilience required to endure decades in an ever-changing entertainment industry. 8. Dana Andrews. For years, Dana Andrews was one of Hollywood's most dependable leading men, starring in classics like Laura and The Best Years of Our Lives. Yet behind his calm and confident screen presence, Andrews fought a long and painful battle with alcoholism. As his addiction worsened, it affected both his health and his once thriving career. Friends recalled periods of depression, emotional exhaustion, and frustration as fewer acting opportunities came his way. Unlike many stars of his era, Andrews openly acknowledged his alcoholism and eventually sought treatment. He became active with the National Council on Alcoholism, encouraging others to seek help before addiction destroyed their lives. Although he never fully regained his golden age fame, his willingness to confront his struggles publicly made him an inspiration to many facing similar battles. 7. Clara Bow. Known around the world as the original It Girl, Clara Bow became the defining symbol of the Roaring Twenties. Her beauty, charm, and magnetic personality made her one of Hollywood's biggest silent film stars. But intense media scrutiny, childhood trauma, and relentless rumors placed enormous strain on her mental health. Bow suffered from anxiety, emotional instability, and periods of severe depression throughout her adult life. As the pressure became unbearable, she withdrew from Hollywood while still relatively young. She later spent time receiving psychiatric care and chose a quiet life away from the spotlight. Although she lived for decades after leaving films, the emotional scars of fame never completely disappeared. Her story remains a reminder that even extraordinary success cannot protect someone from the effects of trauma and overwhelming public pressure. 6. Sterling Hayden. Tall, rugged, and unforgettable, Sterling Hayden became famous through films such as The Asphalt Jungle and Dr. Strangelove. Yet Hayden often admitted that he never truly enjoyed Hollywood life. He struggled with depression, guilt, and personal dissatisfaction, particularly after testifying before the House Un-American Activities Committee during the Red Scare. In later interviews, he described that decision as one of the greatest regrets of his life. Rather than chasing celebrity, Hayden sought peace through sailing and long voyages at sea. Even then, emotional turmoil followed him. His autobiography revealed a deeply conflicted man searching for meaning beyond fame. While audiences admired his commanding performances, Hayden's greatest battle was the lifelong struggle within himself. 5. Charles Boyer. Elegant French actor Charles Boyer became one of Hollywood's most respected leading men, admired for his sophistication and unforgettable voice. Off-screen, however, he experienced heartbreaking personal tragedies. The death of his beloved son deeply affected his emotional well-being, leaving him devastated with grief. Boyer devoted himself to caring for his wife, who suffered from serious health problems for many years. After she passed away in 1978, Boyer found himself overwhelmed by loneliness and despair. Only 2 days later, he tragically took his own life. Many friends believed the loss of his lifelong companion had become too much for him to bear. His story is one of profound love, heartbreaking grief, and the emotional pain that even immense success could not erase. 4. Frances D. Although Frances D. enjoyed a successful acting career and a long marriage to fellow actor Joel McCrea, her life was not untouched by emotional hardship. She experienced periods of personal stress while balancing Hollywood expectations with family responsibilities. Dee gradually stepped away from acting, choosing a quieter and more private life rather than pursuing continued fame. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she found stability through family, faith, and community involvement. Her inclusion serves as a contrast to others on this list, showing that stepping away from Hollywood's relentless pressures could sometimes protect mental well-being. While she faced emotional challenges like anyone else, she avoided many of the tragic outcomes that affected so many of her peers. 3. Rita Hayworth. Few actresses embodied Hollywood glamour like Rita Hayworth, whose beauty captivated audiences around the world. Yet behind her dazzling smile lay years of emotional pain, failed marriages, and intense public scrutiny. In her later years, Hayworth's behavior became increasingly erratic, leading many to mistakenly believe she was struggling with alcoholism. In reality, she was developing Alzheimer's disease, a condition that was not widely recognized at the time. Because the symptoms were misunderstood, she often faced unfair criticism instead of compassion. Her diagnosis later helped bring greater public awareness to Alzheimer's disease, encouraging better understanding of those living with cognitive decline. Although her final years were difficult, her legacy as one of Hollywood's greatest stars remains timeless. 2. Frances Farmer. Few stories in Hollywood history are as tragic as that of Frances Farmer. Once celebrated for her intelligence and extraordinary talent, Farmer repeatedly clashed with Hollywood studios over creative control and personal freedom. Her emotional struggles became increasingly public, resulting in multiple psychiatric hospitalizations during an era when mental illness was poorly understood and treatment methods were often harsh. While many sensational stories about her hospitalization have circulated over the years, historians continue to debate which claims are supported by evidence. What is certain is that years of institutionalization interrupted her career and profoundly affected her life. Though she eventually returned to television, she never regained the stardom many believed she deserved. Today, Farmer's story continues to spark important conversations about mental health, patient rights, and compassion. 1. Vivien Leigh. At the very top of our list is the unforgettable Vivien Leigh, whose extraordinary talent earned her 2 Academy Awards and a permanent place in cinema history. Behind the elegance and brilliance that audiences admired, Leigh endured years of severe mood swings, depression, and emotional crises that historians widely believe were caused by bipolar disorder. During a time when effective treatments were limited and mental illness was heavily stigmatized, her condition became increasingly difficult to manage. Despite these overwhelming challenges, Leigh continued delivering remarkable performances on stage and screen, astonishing colleagues with her professionalism and dedication. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier eventually collapsed under the strain of her illness, but her courage never disappeared. Vivien Leigh's life stands as both a heartbreaking tragedy and a testament to remarkable resilience, reminding us that even the brightest stars can carry invisible burdens. These remarkable actors gave the world unforgettable performances, but behind the applause and glamour, many faced struggles that remained hidden from public view. Their stories remind us that fame and success cannot protect anyone from mental illness, addiction, grief, trauma, or cognitive decline. Today, we understand far more about these challenges than people did during Hollywood's golden age, making compassion and access to treatment more important than ever. If you enjoyed this journey into Hollywood's untold history, please like this video, share it with fellow classic movie fans, and subscribe to Hollywood Secrets Information for more fascinating stories about the legends who shaped the golden era of cinema. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.